Hey, what is going on, YouTube? Ron here. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. And guys, we've got a fun one for you here in today's video. The USS Wisconsin here, the beautiful premium tier 8 battleship, of course, the newest campaign to come to World of Warships Legends. I don't have that much time this morning, so let's go over her stats, commander guide, all that fun stuff, and then get you into a pretty gnarly replay that we had here this morning. AA in slot 1, of course, because we don't have access to aiming systems. Propulsion in slot 2. Concealment in slot 3. And typically, I was thinking about adding plotting room in slot 4, but given that Wisconsin's reload is not the best, I went ahead and went with Legendary Reload mod. The ship actually has a pretty decent heal there. Of course, we're running the catapult fighters with Arthas and infinite main battery reload boosters. This ship is going to create some memes. I've already had a few, even in this game in particular. Reviewing the specs here, survivability 75,500 with a 40% torpedo damage reduction, 3x3 406 millimeters with an 18.8 kilometer range, and a 30.8 reload with our particular build. I think it's like 35 or 34 base. AA defense, of course, with that AA mod in slot 1 is 100 there. You have a pretty decent AA suite. You are an American battleship. Maneuverability is decent. You have a pretty good top speed and an average rudder shift. However, you have that long Iowa turning circle at 920 meters there. Concealment is 13.6, which is on par or maybe a little bit below average for the tier there. The 4 games I had this morning were pretty fun, with the exception of one, which was a cross-play off, which I absolutely YOLO'd, and yeah, that's probably why my average damage is only 108,000 at this particular moment. It's definitely going to be a lot higher. Looking at the armor in the armor viewer here, you're an Iowa class battleship, 32mm bow, a decent, bit of superstructure and casemate there. However, one significant difference that I pull up here in just a moment as I fat finger out of the armor viewer is your citadel. Your citadel is well below the waterline and in a ship as long as the Iowa class here. And truthfully, a ship that needs all 9 of its guns to be competitive at the tier, it is nice to have a below the water citadel. That is going to save a lot of players who don't know how to angle in this game. Now, of course, you can and will still take massive chunks in your casemate, but yeah, that citadel is very, very protected. Now, of course, that does not discount plunging fire. You can get pinned through the deck there. I don't think the deck is that thick, so be careful at ranges there, but up close and personal, you probably, most likely, will not be getting citadel. There is our overview. Looking over our commander, we just went ahead with the nice little Azure Lane, New Jersey here as I was looking at the presets. That is such a nice feature. Thank you, Wargaming. But Azure Lane, New Jersey here is probably going to be a popular pick among the American whales here. Her main base trait is shells that travel over 10 kilometers deal extra damage, which is just nice to begin with because that is the range at which most battleships fight. Flammable Cannoneer in slot 1, Crisscross in slot 2, Firefighter there in the 3rd slot, and of course, Don't You Just Love It, which does the extra damage with Citadel Strikes and adds to your main battery dispersion. Of course, we're running Fight Fire with Fire. We are not a Will to Rebuild Virgin, and we are running Arthas, of course, as well as Mr. Paulo D. Ravel for a touch of added reload there. But that is the stats, commander guide, and all of that fun stuff, and because I'm on very limited time here this morning, we're going to get you a brief little look of her in the New York port here, which is just absolutely gorgeous, and then we're going to get right into the gameplay.
Action stations.
And here we are, ladies and gentlemen, the USS Wisconsin, the pride of the American Navy in World War II, the Iowa-class battleship, was arguably the strongest ship to ever sail the seas. Now, of course, the Yamato enjoyers are going to say that it was, of course, the Yamato, but just the overall speed, combined precision of these guns, and that is everything that it feels like for this ship. Now, of course, if you played this game about 3 to 4 years ago, you know that the Iowa absolutely dominated the game, and this is honestly what it feels like again. This brought me back to the joy that I had of first unlocking the Iowa-class battleship and absolutely decimating some unsuspecting ships. One thing I noticed right off the bat was her speed. 33.5 knots is not only fast in real life, but it is also fast, especially for a battleship, in World of Warships Legends. Now, of course, I think there's a few other battleships at the tier that can get a little bit faster, especially with engine boost there, but if you can get this ship out on a flank such as we do in this game, you are going to be putting yourself in great position to do a lot of damage. Now, I often get questions about this position right here and positioning in a battleship. Yes, this position is rather passive for the moment, but the game has just started. I am seeing where the enemy is developing a majority of their fleet. I am looking at all potential crossfires. There was 2 destroyers, there was a carrier in this game, and despite the ship having good AA, anytime there's a destroyer on an open map like this and a carrier, you don't want to be caught pushing too far forward. I see it far too often. Players overcommit to a flank and they get caught in the spam or caught by a destroyer, and that's all she wrote. We did have a fellow Georgia who ended up helping us out pretty significantly throughout most of this game. So once we kind of read the game flow, we have a destroyer in the cap there, as you guys can see. We realize that we are much more capable to now push in utilizing our speed. And that is actually when we get detected by the radar of the P-bag there behind that island at Charlie. So we're going to attack this flank, try and get him detected. Now, of course, we become surface detected by the Bacardi. I don't want to overcommit, as we just said. However, if I can get this guy spotted as another Cleveland pops up, and that is actually just a great example of not overcommitting. I wasn't quite paying attention, and there was actually a destroyer out on this flank as well. So if I had potentially pushed in a lot earlier, a lot more aggressively, this game could have been a lot shorter than it was. And again, that's just a principle that I like to preach as we take a beautiful broadside salvo on that Picardy there, getting us around 10,000 damage. And that is when the P-bag pops up. And you guys notice we pop the reload button. He's coming out broadside. There's only one result that should happen almost every time you catch a cruiser like this in this range. And yeah, we pop Arthas. Good night. Thanks for playing. There's about 33,000 damage and the Dev Strike. A beautiful example of how accurate this ship can be. And it would have been perfect if we would have gotten one more. Oh, the Cleveland gets away with murder. Now, of course, the Cleveland is a light cruiser there. Overpens are very common on those, but I just feel like overpens happen a lot more often than they should. If you send a 16-inch 2,700-pound shell, I don't know the exact weight, my historians are going to correct me on that, but basically if you send a Honda Civic through the midsection of a ship there, it should do more than 1,000 damage. That's just the way Legends is. It's somewhat of a balancing factor, and you have to deal with it. We throw a salvo at that Cleveland, 2 penetrations there, and a nice finishing touch from our Georgia. And it comes at a perfect time because we just got set on a double fire there. And I was going to put this out, and that is, of course, until I noticed that the aircraft carrier was headed in our direction. So we're just going to wait for him to drop us or, you know, lose all of his planes to our AA. You never want to put out a single fire, and even in this situation, since the Cleveland is now dead, we can just let this double fire burn. We have 2 pretty good heals left. The Picardy is in secondary range, so if I put out these fires right now, I could potentially be set on a permanent fire, and that is actually right around the time that I notice one of the other destroyers has not been detected. Now, of course, one just goes into the Bravo cap there, but if you'll pay attention in just a moment, yep, there are the torpedoes from the Udachi. So, playing this game as much as I have, you just get a sixth sense about these things, but also taking note of where, you know, a mental note of where the destroyers are as our Lightning makes a fantastic play. Not exactly sure what he was doing there, pushing into a secondary battleship that was kiting away, but he did spot for us and he did get the cap, so we are thankful for that. But as I was saying, it is important to take note of destroyers, especially if you're in a battleship, but also, you know, the other HE spamming cruisers and their potentials. In the meantime, though, we have a broadside aircraft carrier, and we're going to take full advantage of that. Now, he does go dark here as we take a moderate salvo from that Picardy. We got the front 2 turrets off, and we just finished with the back turret, and there it is, Dev Strike number 2. This game is going pretty well so far. If we can manage to get another salvo off on that Oyster-Jotland, it would be ideal. However, he does manage to eliminate our USS Black. And now we are down in terms of destroyers, but we are up pretty massively in regards to caps, points, and overall ships. So if we can maintain this advantage, this should be an easy dub.
Teammate, I need your support.
However, if you watched any part of my live streams Friday, Saturday, or this past Sunday, you know that the blue team can and will throw any game possible. I swear I have never had a worse string of luck. I know that sometimes you just get the bad teams, but I swear I think I went like 5-20 this weekend, even in certain divisions, if people want to, throw that argument out there. But regardless, here we're going to try and maintain these caps, get the remaining eliminations on, especially the battleships, but the destroyers if we can as well, and close out a beautiful first look video here for the USS Wisconsin. The next few minutes are me sailing around, trying to maintain position here, but if you guys are wondering what I'm doing, why I'm running away from this sea flank, there is a Udachi behind me, and we do have a carrier. I am never going to spot this guy unless he either breaks his controller in the next 2 minutes or makes a massive mistake, and even in that case, we haven't seen him use any smoke screens. He'd probably just smoke up and utilize his torpedo reload booster if he hasn't already. So pushing into a destroyer, especially when there's other battleships on the board in a situation like this, when we already have the cap advantage, is just a losing play. Sometimes people don't think about like the next step in winning, and in this particular instance, pushing into him here over at Charlie is not the best play. However, seeing that Bravo is a much tighter cap and there is an Oyster-Jotland, which his torpedoes don't do quite as much damage in this Bravo cap here, we're going to go ahead and try and defend this one, as well as get some angles on this AL New Jersey. And I got just enough of an angle because I managed to connect 4 penetrations there, 2 overpins and 2 shatters, and one of those penetrations was in fact a Citadel. With that salvo, we actually managed to take ourselves the high caliber. So a beautiful little opening game here, and it'll get even better if we can eliminate this destroyer. So we're going to play it cautiously. We baited out the first set of his torpedoes. On top of that, we're also isolating ourselves from that Udachi. Now, of course, he can send torpedoes long way through the cap here, like on the northwest side of it, on the top end of it. However, we are protecting ourselves on the back end, and of course, this Georgia being to my left, he will take those torpedoes if they do in fact come from that position. I also noted that the Oyster-Jotland there was sort of beached on the corner of that island, so we're just going to push right into him, and we actually do manage to come with inside his concealment ring. So as we mentioned earlier, unless he makes a mistake, you're probably not going to catch destroyers. However, we've caught him, and we did have carrier support here. We also do have a good amount of health to play with, and we are defending the cap as we aforementioned. So with a nice little reload booster salvo, we managed to get that elimination as well. And if you guys are thinking what I'm thinking, I've got 3 kills, I've got the Confederate, the high caliber, a few dev strikes. We need to get ourselves the Kraken here. And I would have absolutely loved to have the AP, and there is a perk available to Azure Lane, New Jersey, but you will have to substitute that in terms of Firefighter, that shell switch perk. We went ahead and just threw the salvo of HE at the Pommern, and he's burning, so we go ahead and switch back to the AP. And I want to get this kill here because that'll give me 4 with 2 ships remaining, so I just have to get 1 of them. And there are those torpedoes that we mentioned. However, we do have a good bit of health, so probably could have made that turn a little bit sooner. You do lose a good portion of speed while you're in that turn, so do keep that in mind. And again, with a 920-meter turning circle, you're not going to be stopping and turning on a dime. We get a little bit unlucky there. That would have been the salvo to do it because obviously we are behind the island here now, so we will not get the elimination on that Pommern. But it doesn't matter because our team did, and we get the assist ribbon. I love getting those hand job ribbons. It is honestly my goal nowadays, just memeing and having a good time to try and get that assisted Kraken. So we're going to go ahead and go around this corner here. It does one of two things, actually. It protects me from the Udachi from behind me. It also gives me a little bit more damage and the opportunity to kill this New Jersey. Just look at that accuracy, man. I don't even have plotting room on. Now, of course, this guy probably doesn't have any sort of defensive anti-dispersion traits, but that accuracy was just beautiful. This thing feels really accurate even without plotting room. So if you want to run plotting room, that's fine. I don't think you personally need it, but again, we'll test it out and we'll give you guys a final confirmation here. Now, I actually tried to stop so that way the torpedo would have hit the belt, but he already hit a sort of saturated portion of the ship, so it didn't do that much damage. But that is now 3 or 4 torpedoes that we have taken. I'm going to go ahead and speed up the rest of this game because the rest of the game is just the Shima doing the classic IJN thing of running, hiding at 5 kilometers and torpedoing. I tried to take a few blind fires based off of judgments from where the carrier or where the destroyer was based on the carrier spotting, but of course that is all but a shot in the dark there, no pun intended. But that is the USS Wisconsin, everyone, an epic battleship. I highly recommend this campaign. This update has brought a little bit of joy back to the game for me. Despite getting absolutely shit-rolled this weekend, I have never had a worse weekend of Legends. However, I did get to play with you guys, and despite me and Ghazi, TX, and Koi getting absolutely rolled game after game, it was a lot of fun spending some time with you guys. So I love you guys. There is the final results of this game. A pretty decent 3rd or 4th game here. So I love you guys. I'll see you guys tonight on stream. We're going to be on right after work. Yeah, catch you guys in the next one. I love you. I'm out. Peace.